Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Palmetto Guardian. Today, we don't have any special guests per se, but we do have some special people with us. These are all public affairs people, and I'm Specialist David Erskine. We have Staff Sgt Jones, Capt Duvall, and Staff Sgt Boffin here with us. 678, 263rd, 108th pad. This is some of our brethren from around the state that help us do public affairs that aren't here in the studio on a regular basis, but we're having some training and stuff going on, and they're here, and they were more than willing to jump in and do the podcast. They were super willing. Like I had to fight them back from coming over here and doing stuff with this. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining. And just to let you know, these aren't all the people who are here. We have several other public affairs folks here in the background while we're shooting, and hopefully at some point in time y'all get to see them also on the podcast as we move forward. But once again, thank y'all for coming here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
so we got some pretty unique backgrounds just sitting here at the table. Prior Air Force.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 8 years active duty.
Active duty,
Mm-hmm.
And you came over to the Guard.
Yes, I came over to the Guard in 2008.
Yeah, as public affairs, or
no? Actually, I came over as a 68 Echo. I was a dental assistant.
So you were medical. I was prior medical. Were you medical in the Air Force side of things?
Yes, I was a firefighter, and then when I got out, I did 10 years in the fire service as a federal civilian. But I ended up getting my master's degree in public affairs, so here I am.
Man, yeah, I thought I did a lot of stuff in my life, but I think you got me beat. I started out Air Guard. I was a cardiopulmonary technician. Then came over to Army Guard and wound up public affairs. I have no degree, so you're obviously way smarter than me, and we'll move on from that. Not for me to be embarrassed. In the back corner over here, Capt Duvall. Now, super cool about you. You work for one of our universities here in the state.
I work at Anderson University of South Carolina. Don't be confused about Indiana.
Okay, yeah, very true. Now, as far as your military career, you've always been Army side?
I have been Army side. I was raised 22 years with my father active duty, and I thought about going in at 30, and knowing now what I knew then, the recruiter just didn't want to do it. Needed to be done to get me in. The numbers must have been good. And then at 35, I tried. So I got married shy of 38 and went to basic 2 weeks later. And basic at 38 years old, OCS at about 40, and the rest is history. Now I'm in the geriatric military.
Geriatric military, there you go. Okay. Now you're up with the 263rd up in the upstate, one of our outstanding units. Very unique mission up there. Y'all doing super cool stuff, and you're just getting started with them, but you're not new to the ADA community.
Correct.
You were 678 before that, correct?
And before that, I was at the S4. For those who don't know, that's the logistics officer side at the battalion level.
Oh,
as
okay.
well.
Okay.
So I'm a loggy by trade, and functional area, the
Public
PA,
affairs.
Public affairs, yeah.
Public affairs is way more fun, yeah.
It rocks.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
They both have their advantages.
That's on. No, it's fine. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You can. We boast about our work here. We know we're rock stars. That's what we do. We're next level. And then Staff Sgt Boffin, I don't know where you came from.
I came from my mother.
Oh, nice.
About 35 years
So
ago.
how'd that work out? Let's delve into that.
Well, I don't really remember the details.
I feel like this is a Freudian experience, and we need to kind of. So let's talk about the issues with your mom.
Express yourself.
Oh.
So about 2 years ago, I came to South Carolina. Before that, I was in the Connecticut Guard. Spent the first 6 years as a medic, and embedded in different line units, and then I got a communications degree and came over to public affairs.
So you're just 68. Oh, I say just. You're just a 68 whiskey, I guess, or did you specialize?
90. What was it? 91 whiskey.
91 series.
And then
So you old school. Then. All right, got it. No problem. Oddly enough, I didn't expect to have three medical people sitting here. That's right.
And I was an EMT in the fire department, and I went to high school in Connecticut.
Really?
Where?
Mm-hmm. West Hartford.
Okay, so that's more the center of the state. I was west side of the state.
Oh, he's from the west side.
Yeah, out near Waterbury.
Oh yes, he was on the cooler side. Yeah.
Isn't? I don't know nothing about Connecticut.
Good football teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well,
What football teams are up there?
Level.
Are you talking soccer?
No, high school. High school.
Oh, high school football teams. I was gonna
That's
say,
the only kind of football.
Yeah, I was trying to think of-
easy there. I mean, I know you're a transplant to the state, but easy. College football rocks. So anyway, so you found your way down here. You joined the public affairs community, and you're with the 108th Pad, which I was part of that unit at one point in time until they kicked me out. I'm not bitter about it though.
Well, they
It's
had
fine.
make room for me.
No. Yeah, exactly. No, but that's the thing is, so I mean, you got a little bit of representation for everybody around here. Myself being from state, brigade, battalion levels, pad over here, and that the point is public affairs, whether you realize it or not, we're kind of everywhere, and we stay busy. We're out there telling the stories of the soldiers and the airmen because we have our Air Guard brethren and sister over there on the other side.
Well, like you were saying, it's also interesting to see how this represents the Guard. You have 4 individuals sitting here, and they have such a varied background of what they do and what they can bring beyond their MOS and their area of specialty to the fight, so they can say, hey, I can do this, and I can do this, and it just makes I think, a better blended soldier in the long run.
Yeah, and that's always been kind of the strength of the Guard, is that we do bring our civilian lives into this, and I mean, we got people who are and we've talked about this before in legislation, and they're neurosurgeons, and they're engineers, and they're part of the community. They're police officers, they're chief of police, and all this kind of stuff. And you bring that in, you hodgepodge it into your community, and you really do get something kind of unique and different. The fact that you're a dental tech with public affairs, I mean, I got a sore tooth. He might have an option or something, like something better than a doorknob and a string. But that kind of stuff, helps you build. But from a public affairs standpoint, that's outstanding. All the different backgrounds are here, because when we go out and we're dealing with units, we can talk a little bit of the lingo with them. And that's, I think people underestimate that in public affairs is, especially being part of the ADA community and stuff up there and the different roles you've had. You already kind of know what their mission set is and what they've done. The fact that you've come from a different state and have seen things done differently elsewhere. The fact that you have medical, and then of course that master's degree we're not going to talk about. But so everybody brings that to the table and makes our products, makes what we do and telling the story that much better. I guess right now, because I guess you're probably sitting at the table. You're probably our newest we have newer public affairs folks, but you're at the table right now. You're probably our newest. You've been
transferred over in March.
This
year.
Okay, so you're super new. I mean, I guess what I think an interesting idea to talk about is maybe what are some of your perceptions or hopes for public affairs, or is it what you thought it was going to be going forward, or?
Yeah, actually, yes, it is. Something I've been looking at transitioning over to for quite some time, but I currently live in Baltimore, Maryland, so I'm traveling out of state to come and serve in the South Carolina Guard.
You love it here, huh?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I love what South Carolina Guard represents. I love the the mix that we have, like you spoke to earlier, with the intelligent minds and how they share information, and it just makes you a better soldier. So, and it makes it fun to serve. So right now I'm a budget analyst. I work for Department of Transportation and headquarters, and so a lot of what I do now is develop the president's budget. But with being able to have to tell the story of your particular agency, to be able to allow Congress to give you the money that you need to manage your programs, what better way to get that experience with technical writing and telling the story with them in public affairs. So I saw the opportunity to come over and I was blessed with the opportunity too.
It's Erskine with 2 E's, in case you want to write me in on that budget. Do I need to give you my address or anything? Just let me know. Not a whole lot. I'm not
a small check.
I'm not greedy. I'm looking for something 6-figure. No, we don't do that type of stuff.
5-6 zeros.
Yeah, that's right. No, we're good. Now, I do want to talk. And oddly enough, we do have another soldier in the public affairs that actually drives in pretty much your same area, which I think is a testament to show kind of how dedicated our public affairs folks are to the South Carolina National Guard and to the soldiers and airmen out there. I do want to talk about PAD for a little bit, because I don't think everybody really kind of fully understands like what the PAD is and what it does and what it can actually accomplish. Sergeant Baker is also a part of the PAD. Like I said, I used to be. I'm going to use this term and don't giggle or laugh at it, but I mean, the PAD is almost like an elite SWAT team of public affairs people. I mean, you're talking about a group that can go anywhere. They've been in storms, they've been deployments, they go to small events, ceremonies, whatever, and they move downrange quickly and effectively, and they get in and out and get their job done, and they really are, the amount of talent and years of experience that you see in the pad is outstanding, and you're one of the newer members with the pad. I mean, what's been your take on things, or because like I said, you came from a different state and a different background, so you kind of had a little bit of culture shock and everything going into this situation.
Well, I mean, I was new to the South Carolina National Guard. I spent some time before I came here in public affairs. 2009, I made the switch over. So I'm not completely new to the public affairs realm, but before I came to South Carolina, I was in a pad in Connecticut, and I jumped to Joint Force Headquarters, and then I jumped to one of the MSCs like you guys are. And, when I first came in, about 4 months after graduating public affairs school, we deployed to Kosovo. Very high tempo. We were doing a lot of public affairs work. When we came back stateside, it was a lot slower. And one of the refreshing things that I found coming to South Carolina, I got here and we got to work. Outside of deployments, I think I've never spent this much time actually out covering events and doing our job. And with the pad we have now, there's guys that have 20 years experience. There's some that are, less, 4 or 5 years experience, maybe prior experience in different units. And there's just a wealth of knowledge and experience that I really have not noticed in any other unit that I've ever been in. Yeah,
and I agree with that. The pad's a nice little snapshot of what the Guard, especially South Carolina National Guard, has to offer. Now, I want to talk about you, sir, because you are an interesting situation. You actually deployed with the 678th. Now, the interesting thing about officers in public affairs, and I'm not speaking that I know for everybody else, but, I mean, you were a one-man band.
Right.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, you were doing what my job was, an enlisted person, plus doing what your job was as an officer and making sure media and things like that. And I think that's a unique thing that happens to public affairs officers, and is that very much true for what kind of happened with you?
It is, because when I went to the PAO school about 2.5 years ago, you're sitting there in all the schoolwork and that you're going through in the classes, you're talking about this and you're talking about that, and it's a joint force school, so you're in there with a lot of people who have a staff. And in my mind, I'm sitting there thinking, when I go back, it's me. How is this going to be applicable? So Google's great. The Nikon manual was great. Things of that nature, YouTube videos on lighting and such, drinking through a fire hose, and it gives you an appreciation of what the NCOs and enlisted do, saying, wow, this is incredible. And I tell people, and I've been trying to promote at the AA to get people in, just say, when you come out, you're going to be a professional quality videographer, and you're going to be able to put out products that people will say, wow, about. And I tell people, say, when you're watching AFN, that's where they do it. They do it at DINFOS, and you'll learn how to do that. And so had the writing piece, had the media advisories, things like that, but trying to do the other piece was challenging, but it was fun. I learned a lot. I got to see a lot and do a lot, and it just makes you appreciate public affairs more. And seeing a well job, this is the first conference that I've been to with fellow public affairs personnel, just seeing the outstanding job that the public affairs people do for this state and the products that they put out, that they are top-notch quality and can compete with anything that's out there.
Yeah, and just to make a quick nod to our officers in the public affairs career field, I mean, they and I say this because I was medical, and I've been out line units and in different careers in the Air Guard and Air Reserve and stuff like that. This is definitely a career field where officers enlisted get shoulder to shoulder doing the same job a lot of the times to get the job done. Not to say that the officers don't have higher level of responsibilities with meetings and dealing with general officers and stuff like that, but it's very much a career field where we do get in shoulder and shoulder and start working, which is outstanding. I think the other unique thing about public affairs is basically what we've got going on right here. All of us are from different units sitting here at this table. Very rarely when you work, You know, if you're with the 1st of the 118th, when you go to drill or you do your stuff, you see people from the 1st of the 118th. In public affairs, we're constantly cross-referencing each other and pulling each other in, and hey, we need help up here and we need help down here, and that's why these types of this in particular training and stuff that we're doing. This is why this is so important. I mean, have you been a part of anything outside of public affairs similar to this, where you know multiple units came together for some type of training? If so, correct me. I mean, jump on in.
I can honestly say nothing to this magnitude. I mean, I can come in to a drill weekend and Capt. Duvall will be giving me these nuggets on how to properly use our equipment as far as ISO ratings or how to adjust your focal point. And then the next time I'm coming in, I'm doing a video or taking photos of the C-78 setting up draft tents. Yeah. So it's a very unique experience to be able to utilize different skill sets and then learn new skill sets as well.
And I think some of you might get together, like when I was a company commander, you get together with the other company commanders and your battalion commander in a Bub or Cub, but that's different. It's a distribution of information up. It's not a sharing of information to you want to make yourself better in both instances, but one's a sharing so we're all on the same page and just getting a better product out there.
Yeah. And then, you know, something else is interesting because people don't always think about public affairs as being a highly technical field. Like, that's not maybe the first thing that jumps to mind. Like, if you say IT, you think, oh, man, these people are hammering out on computers and stuff like that, which the public affairs world doesn't have warrant officers as far as the Army side of things go. I don't think the Marines or Navy do either. I could be wrong in that, but definitely not an Army side. But what happens from that is you build a relationship where your officers build a trust with the NCOs, a true trust that when an NCO says, hey, technically this is how we should be doing something, that you go with that. So there's a lot more daily interaction and back and forth and conversations that you might not catch in other career fields, like we do in public affairs, anywhere up from, you know, our PFCs and our specialists kind of all the way up through the chain. There has to be that understanding that you're technically proficient at your job when you're talking about messing with audio and camera equipment and things like that, that you're not, because one error changes what the story is. You know, if you cut a clip out wrong, or if you catch audio wrong, or if it, you know, catch something in the background that shouldn't be there, things like that. Now, Staff Sgt. Boffin, you mentioned being public affairs in a pad up in Connecticut, right? Yeah, I'm tracking that right. Okay. I mean, did y'all have kind of a similar kind of working community as what you've seen here in the South Carolina National Guard? Or?
To be completely honest, we didn't. So we had, you know, some public affairs in the headquarters at the state level. Pretty much there was the public affairs officer or director of public communications for the state. He had an NCO that worked for him, and that was about it. So they had that unit up there, and then we had the pad. And about the only time we came together was every couple of years for a governor's inauguration or some big top-level event. But pretty much the pad was left sort of out off to the side, and it was up to them to find, you know, coverage opportunities or to get their training done. And one thing I've noticed that they do really well here, you know, the public affairs officer, the full-time staff here downtown at the headquarters, a good amount of them are also in the pad on the M-Day side. But even if they're not, there's a lot of collaboration. Like, this get-together is phenomenal to me. Everybody from across the state. I didn't even know that we had as many public affairs people across the state, and I'm in the public affairs career field. So, but it's good that the leadership in our field is bringing us together. We work hand in hand. There's not really that, like, division of, like, oh, well, you're the pad and you're, you know, up at the ADA. We're all accomplishing the same mission, and we're all striving in the same direction. And it, honestly, I've been doing this 16 years, the guard thing, and it was refreshing. There's been times in my career where I started to kind of get burnt out, and I was like, man, this is just dragging me down. I got to get a couple more years in so I get towards the end. But coming here has been very refreshing. And interestingly enough, There's a lot of other people in this career field here that have been in a long time like this. It's not just because they're new. There really is just more of a passion and just a better job all around of kind of being one team in the same fight.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's what we've seen, and that's why I think we have the experience level and stuff like that we have in the public affairs community here in South Carolina. Outside of that, I mean, the fact that we're rock stars is awesome.
Pretty much.
I've said it before. This is by far one of the coolest jobs because I've got to experience things in the Guard that I would have never had I stayed medical. Like, I'd have never seen, touched, heard a paladin. I'd have never, well, I might have been on a helicopter. But, you know, the boat units and the disc missions and all that type of stuff that's out there. I mean, do y'all feel like your knowledge level or breadth of understanding of the Guard has increased since being in the public affairs?
Yeah, I think so. Like you said, we were in Germany last year, and it was the first time in about 30 years that we set up a brigade in theater. And so we were traveling a lot. The Colonel Holy wanted to go around a lot, visit the troops, build relationships, with not only the people in Germany, but also the troops there, the active duty. And so I got to travel a lot with him, and I got to go to about 13 different countries, and some for fun. Some for fun. I just throw that in there.
It wasn't all work all the time. No,
let me differentiate with that.
That's fine,
but I got to go to a lot of places, see a lot of things, build a lot of relationships that you're not going to get anywhere else because there were a lot of people that didn't get to go. They stayed in Germany, or they went to, when we went on an exercise to the country where we did that. But other than that, a lot of them were landlocked there, and I got to go do and see. And not being an air defense officer, I got to see how that aspect works and understand. I came from a heavy infantry with the Ford Support Company, so I can talk Abrams and Bradleys, and then I came over here and they started talking, and I was like, yeah, you lost me at, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. And so I've caught on and being in the briefs, and I think it's important as public affairs officers, and it is our intent to get to the table, to learn these things so you can talk intelligently, not only about public affairs but other things, and then we bring our expertise to the table to just enhance what we can offer.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing because I think that builds a certain amount of confidence when you are out doing photographs, video, or doing stories on these soldiers and airmen out there when you can. I mean, you don't have to know, obviously, the same level because they're technically, but being able to at least understand what they're saying and give a little bit back to them, I think it's a big deal when you're talking about actually getting a product and telling their story. Sure, I could see being turned off if somebody's like, hey, what's the widget over there? And like, what, man? Come on now. Like, at least call it a screw or a nut or a bolt or something. Give it a shot, So, I mean, we've kind of talked around public affairs a little bit here and there and whatever else we've done. I do want to throw out there the fact that, there are still openings in the state. Quick plug. 263rd need folk. Yeah, I heard rumors.
We need some.
We need some.
Looking for an adventure.
Yeah. And then so, and as we mentioned with the experience, with experience comes age, and with age comes walkers, and with walkers, you go home. So some of us sooner than others. Nobody in particular. But yeah, I mean, so, some of this is starting to open up. So you hear this podcast and you hear us talking about it and it gets you excited. You think, man, I could do this. Whether you're a photographer or a videographer already, like I said, some of us have come in with experience. I had no clue what it was. I had no clue what it was when I picked it off. I wanted to go back medical. I couldn't get what I wanted per se. And they were like, pick something. I was like, that sounds cool. And I came in now 10 years later, I'm still doing this and we've grown it. And that's what it's about. As NCO and soldiers and officers that have been here, we're growing it for the next group of people, and we're starting to see them come in. We're starting to see the next group of soldiers and stuff that needs to be trained, and we're just laying the foundation for them to run on, because this is this really is an outstanding and fun and important job when you get down to it. I know every career field says that. I'm still going to do it. I don't care if it's cliche or not. But
it's true. We are the most important.
We are. It's just what it boils down to. But gentlemen, I appreciate y'all taking time. One for the whole training to come down here, and like I said, we have many more public affairs people standing behind the camera right now, and hopefully we'll get to see their faces and hear their voices at some point in time on our podcast, because like I said, we're trying to grow this thing. But definitely appreciate you sitting down and doing the podcast with us. Y'all are always more than welcome to come back. And for folks that maybe don't know who you are that are watching or listening to this podcast, now you know who some of your public affairs folks are out in the field. Reach out to them. If somebody at the 263rd, 68th wants to come do a podcast, these are the folks to get in contact with. Come on in.
Another little plug there.
Another little plug. I'm plugging away, baby. I'm plugging away. What else? Am I missing anything? Do I need to plug something else? Pad, if you need people out for AT season, go ahead and start getting your request in. They fill up and book fast. You don't think that would happen to the military, but yeah, Pad books out really fast during AT season. So
that's why it's important when you are booking things out to make sure you get them well in advance to give people a heads up and stuff. Another little plug there.
Yeah, no little plug there. So, well, I'm gonna call that's it for this episode. I'm Specialist David Erskine.
I'm Staff Sgt. Jones.
Captain Ed Duvall.
And Staff Sgt. Boffin.
And we'll catch you in the next episode.